we got the security cat camera right here. Security cat cam. Alright, security cat cam indeed. Why did Sword Art Online have to end at Underworld Part 2? Why? Sword Art Online still had so much more potential, I'm telling you.
Is a very frustrating experience because it's its first IP in decades, and it really fell flat on its face. For myself, I did enjoy certain aspects of the experience, but as time has gone on, the
demographic winter is coming.
Shop worry-free with our fresh
I
guarantee.
don't care. I don't care.
Demographic winter is coming. According to demographic estimates, the number of babies now being born is below the demographic replacement rate. In other words, the global population will start falling because not enough babies are being born to replace the people that are dying. Now, the global fertility collapse has caught many population scientists by surprise because they didn't think that we'd be below the replacement rate until late 2020. Yet here we are in 2024 below that mark. This has also been a surprise because the so-called fertility rate collapse has affected both developed and developing countries alike.
Countries are begging men to have kids. Watch the end of the video to fully understand the implications on society and for women as men are refusing to have children and are walking away from society. And now let's just go ahead and jump right into the video.
As many people already know, Japan has struggled with a downward spinning spiral of the birth rate for a while now. But this problem has been a widespread issue throughout most of East Asia, with places like Hong Kong and South Korea reaching birth rate levels of below 1. Now, I know there are a lot of places around the world where non-marital birth is perfectly fine, but in most East Asian countries, it's a hell fucking no. So obviously, if baby is only socially acceptable with marriage, but no one's getting married, then you're not going to get any babies. But before you jump on the notion that this is just plain old social conservatism, which is partially true, the bigger issue beyond the cultural expectations is that living is just too hard. It's one thing to be living in a country with a very strong social safety net where slipping through the cracks of poverty and despair is pretty difficult, versus a hyper-capitalist country where life is a zero-sum game. And becoming a parent, especially a single parent, most likely a single mother, equates to a metaphorical prison sentence. On top of that, many Confucianist Asian societies have hierarchies everywhere. It's often baked into the language itself, it's in schools, work, family, social life, everything. And we're not just talking about the unspoken, hidden types of hierarchies where you know your boss is not your friend, but you still call them by their first name. No, this type of hierarchy is direct, it's clear, it's a duty. Sometimes it's definitely a good thing, especially when collective action and cooperation is needed, because hyper-individualism sucks at coordinating, so things like enforcing a mask mandate, for example, during a global pandemic, tends to go about a bit more smoothly. But way too often, this rigid hierarchy states that women be treated like shit because society will somehow crumble apart if they don't stay in line. So if marriage calls for this misery of fulfilling gendered expectations like cleaning after your husband, taking care of the kids, and pleasing your in-laws, oftentimes while also working a full-time job because of the non-existent social safety net, then why would anybody want to put themselves through that?
The implications of men choosing not to have kids is becoming quite significant. While they try to act like, oh, well, it's because of childcare and women don't have access to affordable childcare, and that's the reason why. No, men are walking away. Men are beginning to say we're not going to court relationships anymore. Men are going MGTOW. Men going their own way. They're joining that. Women chose the bear, so now they can go and live in the forest. Men are done with society. Men are done with relationships. And countries are actually begging men to go and make babies right now, guys. Within 10 years, this is going to be a major demographic crisis that we're going to witness. And of course, all of those people who said that, oh, we're having issues with overpopulation. We don't need to have children. A lot of the Sims are responsible for this. Okay? They're going to be saying, well, don't worry, automation is on the way. We're getting closer and closer to automation. All the billionaires, oh, automation would save the future. Guys, we are going to see stagnation within the economy as well. Okay, right now we are entering into stagflation. All right, stagflation is a dirty word that no one basically wants to talk about, because with stagflation, it's basically like a depression. It's a very horrible thing to happen. And this is the society, this is what we are now facing. And of course, men are increasingly just walking away from relationships, dating. Men pay 80% of all taxes in Western society, and women make 80% of all consumer purchases. This basically means that if men are not actively out there in the workforce, creating value and creating new wealth, there is no wealth for anyone. Everything begins to fall apart. Everything begins to collapse. The government cannot survive. And if the government starts to go after men and add bachelor taxes, men will just make less money, because the average man could live comfortably in a shoebox at the side of the road. The average woman cannot. When a man passes away, over the course of a man's life, he will leave a surplus on the economy. So he will basically put more money into the economy than he takes out over the course of his life. The average woman will leave a deficit on the economy. She will take more money out of the economy over the course of her life than she puts into it. If men continue to walk away, refuse to make babies, refuse to work longer hours, refuse to have kids, refuse to get married, the entirety of the economy is placed upon the backs of the state and also women. And the state does not have that kind of money to be some woman's come up. The state does not have that kind of money to subsidize the living and total expenses of women and children in Western society. You have to also remember that women and the state, they absolutely resent us and do not like us. So they will never actually come right out and say they need us. And the simple truth is that they will simply condemn us. Just, I told you the story of the Roman Empire where, the emperor condemned a single man and said they were worse than all of the criminals in all of Rome, and there were punishments for them. They couldn't basically go to public, they could not engage in public entertainment events, so they can go to the Colosseum or the theater, and they had to run in the streets during the winter chain gang style, and they still wouldn't marry. And within 100 years, there was no military, there was no production of wealth anymore. The empire was relying entirely upon slave labor to take care of the women, and because basically all of the empire's resources were being used to subsidize the living of women. And then the barbarians came along, and the empire tried to bribe the barbarians with land. And the barbarians basically called the bluff, realizing the emperor had no clothes, had no military, pillaged the empire. We were plunged into 1,000 years of darkness, and women suffered really, really bad during that time. They were basically out in the fields working alongside the men, but they had way fewer rights, and it was just absolutely a terrible time.
Why is the U.S. experiencing such a significant drop in birth rate? 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, life expectancy wasn't too high, and kids dropped off at a pretty good rate. Unclean water, unclean food, no vaccines. Along come the 1900s. Here in the U.S., after World War II, you could have a single person with an income that would allow you to buy your house, send kids to college, and you continue to climb that ladder. Of course, that came along with the destruction of the multi-generational home and a lot of emphasis on moms doing pretty much everything at home and everything child rearing / parenting by themselves. Now the last generation of two is recognizing that 2 incomes might not be enough to afford the home, get you out of debt from college, let alone get you anywhere close to comfortably raising even 1 kid. So let's just say a couple nowadays wants to have a kid, and a female gets pregnant. They choose to have a kid. The woman does so at the risk to her own body. Now, particular risk in some states where it can be a life or death matter. Seriously, I mean it. Like right now in the Supreme Court, they're arguing a case that's been brought forth by Idaho, where you can try and decide how much damage, how many organs a woman can lose before emergency care needs to be rendered to still comply with EMTALA, a law that governs who and how things should be treated in the emergency room.
Starbucks order, you're not just getting a cup of coffee. You're helping support farmers who grow coffee across the globe. And comprehensive health and well-being benefits for the baristas who brew it. Reusable cups and renewable energy, and stronger communities worldwide, including a $3 million donation to World Central Kitchen, supporting their efforts to provide food in Gaza. Together, we can create a place where everyone is welcome.
I don't care!
Yes, another story about the cross-gen cycle with PS4, PS5, now going into PS5 Pro, and actually we are kind of in that landscape where we're halfway through PS5, so we are getting those very early rumors about PlayStation 6, but that's what feels so weird about PS4, where the console, on appearance, it does feel like it's been sticking around for a lot longer than usual, and that's true to a degree, but also not so much in other areas, so we did have a story pop up recently that is pointing us in that direction of the console having a pretty standard decay curve when it comes to it being the outgoing platform. So what popped up recently was this article on IGN a few days ago where they were speaking with the Monster Hunter and Sonic developers about PS5 Pro, and they were asking them how they felt about the console, and they gave unsurprisingly very different answers. So the Monster Hunter series producer, Ryozo Tsujimoto, were pretty positive about the console. They want to support it right away for Monster Hunter Wilds being this very, graphically intensive game and things like that, so that all kind of stacks up there. But the Sonic team producer, Takashi Iizuka, they said they want to keep focusing on the previous generation as well, so that as many people as possible can keep playing Sonic games. They said, and I quote here, "As a market, we have the high-end machines, high-end consoles. Coming out with those consoles, we feel that we can make newer Sonic games that can express the speed of Sonic and with much better gaming UI as well. However, we want to support the lower spec constants as well, so even though the PS5 Pro is coming out, or new innovations or new technology are coming out, we feel that it is important to support the lower spec consoles and let many of the users keep playing Sonic." Now that's not where the story ends though, because then this was picked up by Derek Strickland over at Tweaktown, where the way they wanted to phrase the story, or at least focus on one portion of that story, was this headline where they say Sega and Sonic Team will continue supporting PS4 to ensure higher sales potential, which is true. That's one portion of the story that they wanted to cover, and so this was then reposted by Matt Piscatella of Circana, which tracks video game sales data here in the US, and this is what I wanted to touch on because Matt gives some very interesting insight, which I think we all sort of knew, but he does outline this further. He says, "This news had me digging into recent PS4 new game sales, and let's just say that this approach is, I'll call it optimistic. PS4s are active, sure. They're Fortnite, Call of Duty, GTA 5, and Roblox machines, shrug." And he does say for Fortnite, 1/3 of all active PS4 users played Fortnite in September, which is a massive amount of players. I mean, this kind of goes back to a recent conversation which focused on that one slide that came out of Sony's recent business segment briefing, where it showed this sort of even split between the active users on PSN right now, where it is a nearly even split between PlayStation 5 and PS4. And, when that news came out, there was a lot of conversation around how that was like somehow weird or unusual, or PS4 is still around, why haven't they killed this console yet, and why are developers still supporting? But it's like, why? We're halfway through the cycle. Half the users have bought into PlayStation 5, and that is a pretty natural curve as far as like when people are going to, at a certain point, finally jump into the next console cycle. It's not like 1 or 2 years into PlayStation 5 being out, and certainly with the circumstance of not being widely available, people are just in droves. 100+ million users are going to buy the new console. It simply doesn't work like that. So that was always, and it still is, like a really strange thing, even to this day when people are complaining about PS4 and how long it's been sticking around. But this does imply exactly what that story also circles around to, which is PS4. It feels like it's been sticking around longer than usual. But we still have every indicator in the book that this has been a fairly straightforward cycle and transition period. The outlier being that, this console, while PS4 and 5 are just so similar to one another as far as the system architecture and actually shipping and making games for them. It's a very simple process. It's not even remotely close to what we saw with certain transitionary periods from, say, PS1 to 2, or 2 to 3, and even more so from 3 to 4, which, 3, we all know it's the cell processor, kind of a pain in the ass system to make games for. And so to, have this cross-gen cycle of making a cell processor
A new deal is at Tim's.
Y'all. Y'all. The women are now begging for the men to hang out with them. This is so bad. You know, I would have never thought in a million years that I would witness the day that women were practically on their knees begging for the men to hang out with them. Not date them, not marry them, not be in long-term committed relationships, but to merely hang out. It has gotten that bad, you all, that the men have completely abandoned ship. Okay? They don't want anything to do with a lot of the women today, and I just can't help but to think, how far have we fallen? Ladies, how far have we truly fallen from grace to where the men are now avoiding us like the plague? They don't want to kick it with y'all. They don't want to turn up with y'all. They don't want to do anything with y'all. Like, what did y'all really do? I have real questions, okay? I mean, when I came across this video right here, I said, yeah, it's looking like we're doomed. Because since when did the women have to truly beg for men to give them attention, hang out, kick it, dance, party, link up? Like, what? Seriously, what? What did we do? Okay? We need answers. So, y'all like the video, share the video, and subscribe, because we need more and more men in particular to come through to let us know, what did we do wrong and can we fix it? Okay? Why aren't you all wanting to hang out with the women anymore? Why is it that you all in today's time would rather hang out with your homeboys and hang out by yourself than to shoot the breeze and shit with the women? Like, what is at play? We need answers, okay? But y'all like the video, share the video, and subscribe, and let's get into it. Because when I came across this video right here, I said, wow, ladies, y'all must have really messed up. Let's get into it. And again, hit the like. Y'all gotta start coming to these brunches. That's where all the pretty girls be at, literally. With their little colorful outfits, they take their hoodies off, their t-shirts off. And then that's what they be, all the working class women, nice nurses and stuff. Like, y'all be missing out. Y'all gotta start coming to the brunches. Y'all love gym shoes at night, but y'all don't wanna come where the ladies be at, pretty and just ready to mingle. I gotta pause it. Because already it's so much that needs to be addressed. She's saying, fellas, why don't you all want to come to the outings with us, aka the brunches with us? This is where all of the beautiful women are mingling. You know, they have their pretty, colorful outfits. You know, they're taking the shirts off, aka getting wild, and y'all still don't want to show up? Like, what is going on? So, ladies, we really need to be taking into consideration just how bad we have turned off these men to where they're like not even enticed by a bunch of beautiful women. They don't care that you're taking your clothes off and getting rowdy. Like, oh, y'all, they're turned off. Like, this is a lot. And again, fellas, y'all let me know what happened. But let's continue. Come on, fellas. Like, I need the fellas, man. What, I'm doing something wrong. I just want to know why men don't become angry black men. Okay, so now she's getting into, I guess, the responses that she received from the initial video. So now she's talking about all of the comments that she got from a bunch of angry black men concerning her previous video asking, hey, why aren't you all coming out to the brunch with us? Okay? But before I get into the second half of this, I have to say this. Ladies, unfortunately, a lot of women have spoiled it for the good quality women, or the women who, you know, would have been, let's say, okay for a man to hang out with and kick it with. You know? So, for example, ladies, due to the fact that there's so many women out there that are just poor quality, they only wanted to use the men up. They didn't have a genuine interest in the men. For crying out loud, you all, we have whole femininity coaches teaching women not to even love the man. It's all about his money. It's all about what he can provide for you. So, with all of that taken into consideration, you have so many men out here who are just like, look, if all I'm going to be used as is a sucker and a tool to be thrown away and discarded of, I'd rather save myself the time and the energy and the money. Why should I show up to hang out with a bunch of women who don't even value me? They don't even like me, let alone love me. So yeah, I'll save it. I'll skip it. You know? And so even when you have women such as her who is professing the fact that, hey, I never did anything wrong. What did I do wrong? I always loved the men. I always respected the men. Well, again, unfortunately, due to a lot of women not being in alignment, it does turn off the men from the bulk, from the majority. So they just cast all of you all away. And that's why it was so imperative for the women who were trying to be righteous, right? Who were trying to be fair and balanced to call out these females that were not. And I get it, ladies. It's hard to speak up and stand up against the quote-unquote sisterhood of sadness, right? When they're telling you, oh, you're a pick-me, and oh, you're male-identified, and oh, you're against women, and you're setting women back. I know that can be a lot to go up against, but you had to speak up against it because now look at you in these very awkward situations to where you're begging for the men to pay you attention and not throw you out with the other women. Well, you asked for it, okay? I mean, when you don't speak up against things that are unrighteous, unfair, selfish, and all of that, well, you get what you get. And so that is ultimately what we're facing today as well, ladies. And I do feel sorry for the good quality women that are being overlooked in the process. But again, this is why y'all should have been standing up and speaking out. But let's continue. And y'all like the video, share the video, and subscribe.
Dogging us out so bad, saying how we want y'all to pay for stuff and just the lies. If I'm inviting you to a brunch, that means me and my girls already got our tickets and our tables. What do we need your stuff for? What's that little money gonna do? Majority of the women making more money anyway.
Here we go. Just when I thought maybe she would have been one of the good apples, you expose yourself. So, I'm guessing she got a lot of pushback from her previous video talking about the men. Why aren't y'all showing up and kicking it with us and hanging out with us? And she's now saying that she got a comment section full of angry black men talking about how a lot of women just want to use them. And that's rightfully so, that they feel that way. I mean, again, have you all heard about the level up life in the soft girl era in life? A lot of those chicks out there are heavily fixated on finding a man to, again, milk dry, okay? They're not in it for righteous reasons. It's all about how you can use up a guy. And another thing that goes into that is the fact that when men did show women genuine interest, they would soon learn and find out that the woman did not like him, and it was all about what she can gain from him. No reciprocation, no.
guys remember Remy Bucksaplenty from Fairly Odd Parents? This kid? This is who I think of every single time I hear about Epic Games or Tim Sweeney doing anything at all. Over the last few years, Epic Games has been suing like every major tech company they can, all in some weird attempt to seem like the underdog. And so Epic can be seen as the company that's like standing up to the big dastardly monopolies and tech corporations, even though they themselves are a tech corporation with monopolistic ambitions.
Welcome. Today, we would like to give you a glance into the progress we have made on quests as we approach our 2025 release goal. In this video, we shall be previewing 2 side quests, Fingers of the Mountain and Killing Fields. While progress has been steady, we are always looking for more volunteers to help us finish the project and get it into your hands as soon as possible. If you think you can help, please send us an application at www.skyoblivion.com/volunteer. This quest takes place roughly mid-game, and is given by the Coral Mages Guild as a task to receive their recommendation. To start it, we must speak with Tikas, who wishes for us to investigate a former member of the guild, who has been lurking around the city.
What is it, Associate? Do you need something? I'm afraid I can't just write one out of hand. That would be against protocols, you see. If perhaps you can clear up a small matter involving Irana, you can prove your loyalty to the guild and earn my recommendation. She and I have...
Alright, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Nobody complaining about the PlayStation 5 prices know what they're talking about.
You try and argue that it does, I would just slap the glass pipe out of your hands.
And yes, I realize that's a bold statement to make. But let me get a few things straight before you bombard the comments with a plethora of unfounded Equus Cabalist sheets. Number 1, $700 is a lot of money for the average person. And number 2, I'm not buying the PS5 Pro. With those 2 facts up...
You want to talk about the future of...
I was talking about the dangers of Google device tracking in the last video, and someone asked, how do I get it to Google Phone?
Of course, always gotta be ads. Always.
causes 1,000 problems in South Park. Well, it's really just one problem, but it manifests in 1,000 different ways. That problem is gentrification, and all of the distortions it causes in the real estate market and in the quality of people's lives. That is the main point of Season 25's City People. South Park explains gentrification, roasts the real estate agents and gentrifiers, and then gives us one more reason to hate Cartman. But first, to gentrification. What causes gentrification? What are the perceived benefits? What are the downsides? And what can we do about it apart from all the pointless protesting and complaining? City People gives us a pretty good reason for gentrification.
You can get 4 times the house here than you can get in the city.
It's a painfully obvious reason, but it's just a surface reason. We'll get into the deeper reason as to why gentrification is a problem it is. But let's just follow the story for a minute. City people are moving into South Park and the real estate market is getting hot. Leanne Cartman's rent is going up, so she finds herself a new job as a real estate agent. It's a very difficult job.
You have to get your picture taken.
That's it. Well, there is a little more, but it's not much.
And then act like you like those people when you show them houses.
Long story short, Leanne gets the job.
Well, then I'm going to give you a shot, Mrs. Cartman, for your little boy.
Which is a big mistake. You see, there's one person she forgot to ask.
I got a job, Aaron.
I'm your dad.
Leanne explains that she needs a job to pay their bills, and Cartman responds by asking,
What job could you possibly have? You don't know how to do anything.
like the good little boy he is, Cartman decides to help his mother by sabotaging her career.
If my mom could be a real estate agent, then literally anyone in the world can.
So Cartman becomes a real estate agent. He puts on his fake smile, crosses his arms, leans as far back as he can, and snaps a picture.
I won't forget this when I'm rich.
That brings us to the gentrifiers. As a stand-in, South Park uses city people. These are the yuppie millennials who have a very deep philosophical calculations about MacBooks and LaCroix. Just listen to them.
Cortado. Oh, bottle water. Bottle water.
South Park also shows us how gentrification gets a pass in the first place. It tends to be supported by the ruling class. In South Park's case, that is the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, I just love all these city people moving in.
For the business people, this makes perfect sense.
My bakery has seen a 20% increase in sales.
But what is the cost of all this? Mr. Kim explains with an amazing dialogue filled with puns. It's actually unintentional because he is praising the city people, but his accent makes the whole thing hilarious.
These shitty people have a shitty way of doing things that will expose us all to their shitty ideas.
But money is not the only reason why the ruling class tend to encourage gentrification. There is a more insidious reason beneath it all. And in the privacy of the council chamber, Mayor McDaniel says it out loud.
I've always dreamed of South Park becoming more than a little hick town.
That's right. Good old social engineering. It never really went away. A scary number of people in the ruling class believe they're better than you, and believe they should decide how you live. When you look at unpopular policies, they always come from politicians who think the average person is too stupid to tell right from wrong, which they take to mean they should make the decisions for us. That's how you end up with governments that regulate every little thing, including stuff like the color of your door and the height of your lawn. Naturally, these politicians think that cultured city people moving into a little town like South Park is a plus. The cruel irony of this kind of thinking is that a lot of the stuff that passes for high culture in our society just tends to be overpriced garbage. It's not better. It's just old-fashioned snobbery with modern characteristics. One would imagine that being enlightened would make you immune to spending ridiculous amounts of money on stupid stuff, just to show that you're better than poor people, but the world is quite a funny place. The richest and allegedly most enlightened among us tend to be the very people who are obsessed with wasting money just to flex on the poor. The rich members of this crowd will spend millions of dollars on a blank canvas masquerading as a painting, while the middle-class wannabes will waste good money on tap water in a can. South Park just roasts the hell out of these snobs with the way it portrays these city people. They only talk about LaCroix, Cortados, MacBooks, and of course, their Teslas.
We have a Tesla. My son left his MacBook in the Tesla.
These are also snooty snobs making your neighborhood unaffordable. They're not better than you or smarter than you. They're just brainless sheep with money to waste. In their attempts to look unique, they turn themselves into boring carbon copies of each other. But because South Park's ruling class itself is made up of snooty snobs with zero self-awareness, this whole tragedy is lost on them. They keep encouraging city people to move in and improve their town.
Here's to the future, everyone. The future.
And what a dark future it is.
Bye-bye. Oh,
Now, city people are gentrifying South Park because they're attracted by the lower home prices. But as more of them pour in, those home prices go higher. This begs two questions. How and why? Let's start with the simpler of the two questions. The how. When Carmen shows the city people Tweek's house, Tweek's family doesn't even want to sell.
Our house isn't for sale. Hey!
But they just haven't heard the offer.
I think I can get you $4 million for this place.
$4 million? Really?
Now, $4 million can only get you a box under a bridge in LA and an air mattress in New York. But the rest of the country, the average price of a home is about $400,000. Given that South Park is a small and fairly rural town, the average price of a home here is
Nobody likes to be told what to do, except when someone says,
Shut up, motherfucker. Shut up, bitch. I don't give a shit.
My name is Thomas.
Fuck you and fuck your money.
You wouldn't treat your customers like a number, so why let your bank treat your business like one?
Shut the fuck up, bitch.
probably even lower. We see pre-bubble prices ranging from 170K to 350K. Now they're 10 times higher. This is how the real estate bubbles happen. A few guys with too much money move into a town and offer crazy prices for otherwise average homes. And then when Bob hears that his neighbor Billy got $4 million for his house, he's not going to sell his own house for $1 less. He's going to reject all fair offers from regular buyers and hold out for the big money offers. Then Jim hears that Bob got $4.1 million for his house, so he holds out for 4.2. And then Steve holds out for 4.3, and round it goes. But I think you could spot the problem by now. Why do we let things get this crazy in the first place? Now, the reason why houses get so expensive in South Park's bubble is pretty obvious when you just watch the episode. There are all these city people moving into South Park, but nobody is building any new houses. The city people are just bidding up prices for the existing stock of houses, and prices keep going up and up and up because there's nothing to replace them. This wouldn't happen in any other market. If there were only left in the world, you're the only person you could theoretically force all the people who want to get an apple to get to a bidding war and probably sell each apple for like $1 million. But that would never happen. People would start growing apples, and soon there would be this supply prices of apples to normal levels. It's demand. It happens in the market for product. The reason is a conspiracy. We can't really build new homes because a long time ago, rich people decided that they don't want to live near poor people. Southern segregation, but Northerners decided to be illegal. Invented zoning. These laws, in the early 1900s, made houses in suburbs too expensive and undesirable. The undesirables at the time were people of color, Italians, and the Irish. 100 years later, the Irish are considered white, and the racism against people of color has decreased significantly, but those houses haven't gotten any cheaper. This is because we realized racism was stupid and replaced it with an even stupider practice, classism. Why hate poor people from one race when you can hate poor people from all races equally? One result of this classism is that 75% of all residential land in America is zoned for single-family houses only. In a state like California, single-family zoning eats up 82% of residential land. In desirable places like Atherton, which is a suburb of San Francisco, 100% of the land is zoned for single-family homes. The minimum lot size in Atherton is one of the highest in the country, around an acre. So one building per acre. The planning laws in Atherton make it effectively illegal for poor people to live there because the only home you can build in a place like that is a mansion. Unsurprisingly, Atherton has an average home value of $7.5 million. Go to any major city in America and you'll find zoning laws that make building new homes very difficult anywhere that isn't in the literal sticks. As cities have grown, all the houses in the desirable neighborhoods have been snapped up. Single-family zoning, building codes, and good old neighborhood preservation laws have been weaponized by both the real estate lobby and NIMBYs to prevent anybody from building any new houses. The situation has gotten so bad that in the first 6 months of 2024, San Francisco, a city of 800,000, with a metro area of nearly 8 million people, only approved 16 new houses. That's not 16 apartment blocks that can house 1,000 people each. No, it's just 16 housing units total. 16 houses for 16 people in an area with 8 million people. If you ever wondered why San Francisco has such a bad homeless problem, there's your answer. But the homeless are just the most visible victims. There are way more people who are spending most of their paychecks on rent. The math is very brutal, but very profitable. If no one builds any new houses, then the existing houses can keep doubling in value. This is a great deal for the boomer homeowners and the real estate investors who bought their home for $11 back in 1969. But it's a terrible deal for everybody else because as home prices keep going up, the possibility of owning one becomes increasingly impossible. San Francisco just happens to be the most extreme example of this. The rest of the country is experiencing more or less the same problem on a slightly smaller scale. We're not building enough houses because NIMBYs and real estate types use existing laws to block any new construction so they can preserve their property values, and everybody else suffers. Well, not everybody. Apart from homeowners, there is a group that benefits a lot from this messed up system. Now, the shortage of new housing doesn't stop the housing market. Everybody still needs a house. In a fair market, that wouldn't be stupid. You would have a construction company competing with other construction companies as possible. Instead, we have house flippers repainting old houses and real estate agents competing to sell them. South Park roasts both folks and city people and white people renovating homes.
Is to take out the wall between the kitchen and living room for a more open concept.
With another client, Randy gives very different advice.
What we're thinking is to take out this wall between your kitchen and your living room to give you a more open concept.
And when Randy meets a third client, his advice fails.
I can't take out the wall between my living room and my kitchen. It's a load-bearing wall.
This is a very harsh critique of the whole house flipping industry. Make a few cosmetic changes and jack up the price by 30%. Nevertheless, South Park reserves the harshest criticism for real estate agents. Nothing is off limits. From their petty obsessions with image to their fake smiles, and the way they sit with their arms crossed and lean back when...
Oh god, this is like the 7th ad of this video. Oh, is there another one? Oh, it's the 8th ad of this video. Wow, YouTube. Awesome.
Taking a picture. And then there is the way they talk in their gratingly fancy language.
This is a 2,300 square foot mid-colonial
Nice.
detached garage.
What the hell is a mid-colonial? I don't know either. It sounds fancy, but when you look at it, it's just a generic suburban home. And the detached garage thing, it's just a shed. But that's the point. South Park shows how real estate agents exaggerate everything. Generic suburban home with a shed you can park your car in doesn't sound so fancy. But a mid-colonial home with a detached garage? Well, that sounds like something you could sell for...
Now listing for just $3.5 million.
Just $3.5 million. I think we hear the word so often that we forget what a crazy amount of money $3.5 million actually is. But once again, that's the point. Real estate agents deliberately use words like just and only to make you forget how crazy the figures they're throwing around actually are. This is also part of a manipulation tactic called anchoring. Basically, they show you a couple of $3 million homes, and then they show you a $900,000 home. The $900,000 home seems cheap in comparison to the others. It makes you feel like you're getting a good deal, but it's still a crazy number. It just doesn't feel like that because your brain is comparing it to the $3 million houses they just showed you. That's how anchoring works. You're still getting scammed. You're just not aware of it yet. As recently as the 1970s, you could buy the average home in America for $17,000. An average working
Bro, what? So you're telling me I could buy like 5 houses if this was the 1970s? And now I can only afford like 10% of a house?
2 years of income. Today, that average house sells for $400,000. America needs 7 years of income to afford it. And that's assuming you don't live in a city where you have to compete with the out-of-towners for a house in the first place. And this is a serious problem. Now, we have discussed how and why out-of-towners gentrify neighborhoods and entire cities. In South Park, those gentrifiers were city people. But what about our world? Where do the gentrifiers come from? Your town's version of city people may be a giant investment firm like Blackstone. They usually swoop in and outbid regular home buyers. They also tend to buy up entire neighborhoods and then turn around and rent them out. The second group of culprits are foreign millionaires and billionaires. If you're a rich guy in a place like China, Russia, Saudi, or any of the other oppressive places in the world, the government can seize your assets at any time for saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. So, for a lot of these rich people in these countries, the first order of business is taking on as much money as they can out of their home country and parking it in a country with stronger property rights. Usually in Europe, America, and Australia. Even in countries with good property rights like India, the rich tend to own property abroad, either to hedge their bets or just as a status symbol. Then there are the tax refugees. Super rich folks from high-tax countries like Norway tend to relocate to lower tax jurisdictions. America sees the same tax refugee thing internally, with people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos relocating from high-tax California and Washington to low-tax Texas and Florida. People like Elon also tend to bring a lot of their employees with them when they move. So it's not just one guy distorting an entire housing market, it's more like 10,000 of them. Once these super rich get their money out of their home country, they park it in safe assets. The most preferred asset is real estate because it's more stable than the volatile assets like stocks. Even if the value of a house crashes, it will never go to zero. In the 2008 crash, houses lost 20% of their value. So if you put $1 million in, you would still get around 800,000 back. Even if the house itself gets blown up or washed away by a hurricane, and you don't have the insurance, the land is still there, and land will always be worth something. With stocks, there are no such guarantees. Invest in the wrong company, and you could be zeroed out. This is why real estate is considered a safe haven asset. But this safe haven status encourages people with too much money to park it in real estate and in hot local markets. They can easily crowd out the rest of us. Global cities like New York, London, and Vancouver have become so unaffordable precisely because of this. When Vladimir Billionarov is desperately trying to hide all of his money from Putin, he doesn't care how things cost. He just wants to stash away as much of it as he can for his kids, in case he accidentally falls out of a window. The lawyers and real estate agents he's using to do this know that as well. And because real estate agents get paid on commission, they have an incentive to buy their client the most expensive property available. Once all the castles and mansions have been bought up, these guys start buying up regular houses and homes and apartments as rental properties. Because of how we shot ourselves in the foot by basically banning all new construction, the inflow of money just makes the existing homes more unaffordable. People with more money moving into a neighborhood should be a good thing. But because of artificial scarcity, when these guys move in, everyone else is forced out. So, how do we deal with this problem? In South Park, once the city people get too much,